You again. So I was trying to stream a minute ago and the connection died, and I suppose it's kind of my fault. Just know, whenever you see anything on YouTube, it's usually about 100 times harder than it looks like. There's always a million things that could go wrong. Anyway, so let's get on with this. This is a happiness class. This is the fourth class. Please, do check out bigquestionsanswer.com for the whole list of classes, the things that have been done before, because there's an order. You know how classes work. You should watch the previous ones, but you can definitely learn from this class independent of the other classes, kind of, right? Um, what have I got to say? There's a whole bunch of things I like to say, but I don't have an intro properly right now. Couple of things. So these classes are based on Islam, and the reason is because Islam is unique in some really basic uh, things that are kind of necessary. Like, first of all, it's logical. So you might say other religions are logical. Actually, they don't claim to be logical. They're faith-based usually. Okay, they're not based on science. So in fact, they contradict science. Islam is the only religion that can claim to be 100% in line with science, ahead of science. So, for example, it talks about the Big Bang and all sorts of things, well before like Einstein came up with the ideas. So, well ahead of science, in line with science, logical, very rare. Also, another thing is it's unique because it's inclusive. So, it's a religion that says it's very clear in the Quran, which is the guidebook of Islam, and actually all for all of humanity, really, that you don't have to be a Muslim to go to heaven and stuff like that, right? You just have to be a good person, and that's what God wants you to be. Islam just tells you how to be a good person really clearly, because it's not actually that simple if we go into it to be a good person. Um, so that, and yeah, bigquestionsanswer.com. Did I mention that? Yeah, go to that. Text summary. So there's a summary of all my classes beforehand that I offer about what I'm going to say, so you can think about what I'm going to say. So of course this is a live stream, so if you had a thought about what I'm going to say, it makes it easier for you to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions. Yeah, I'm trying to also, so my text summary is getting longer and longer and longer. That's actually me being lazy, because it's actually quite hard to summarize things. It's easier just to say things. Even then, my summary is very much a summary. I've like stopped myself from explaining things too much. And so feel free to ask questions in the live show or in the comments after the live show, because I'm always getting messages about somebody's commented, and I basically pretty much always respond to those comments. So please ask anything you want. Don't feel shy. Don't feel like it's being rude. Okay. I even encourage almost some level of rudeness. Like, just say what you want to say. Feel free. So with that, because what I've got to say is a lot of stuff, I better get on with it. So this is about saving the environment, and how saving the environment actually makes you happy, because that's what these classes are all about. So let's get on with it. So the topic of the class is environment, its link to happiness, and the real solution. So I have always 7 sections to every class. Each section is started with a title, a one-word title, and the one-word title for the first section is responsibility. So I will be reading it out, but I'll also be checking out the comments if there are any. It's very rare for there to be comments, to be fair, maybe because it's hard to talk about, and that's why I also have the text summary, so you can read ahead of time and think about it. Responsibility. Number one, responsibility. You might be wondering what the environment has to do with your personal happiness. Besides the obvious answer that we cannot be happy if we destroy the planet we depend on, Islam teaches that by working towards making our world better, we'll feel good about ourselves and become happier. It is through serving and trying to do our responsibility rather than complaining about our rights do we feel happier, fulfilled and happier. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The upper hand is better than the lower hand. The upper hand is one that gives, and the lower hand is one that takes." Okay, by the way, all the references and everything are in links in the text summary if you're interested. Okay. In this example, Islam puts emphasis on doing good for others rather than waiting for someone to do good to you. This is the opposite of Western society, where most people are complaining about their rights, but few are talking about their responsibility towards society. You know what? I am um, going to get a link for all those people who might be wanting to watch the video but can't. Is it worth it? No. Better not to ruin the video by messing around too much. So, yeah, live stream got messed up, the original live stream, the one I advertised to everybody, so I'll have to re-advertise it afterwards. No big deal, right? Okay, so I will continue with the class. Okay, so as I was saying, people in modern Western societies are focused on their rights, but they're not interested so much on their responsibilities. There's a lot of noise about, I want this right, that right, you know. Sure, they're important rights, but if you focus only on your rights, you're in big trouble and society goes down the toilet, as I'm going to explain. So this is the opposite of Western society, where most people are complaining about their rights, but few are talking about their responsibility towards society. Without people fulfilling their responsibility, nobody can receive their rights. One depends on the other. For example, if I am never kind to my children, then my children never receive the right to be treated kindly by their dad. When society focuses just on their rights instead of their responsibility, they never receive those rights. This is the individualistic approach the West is taking, which is why people are so miserable in the West, as shown by the rising levels of depression. So this is a text summary, but sometimes I feel like it's not really explaining things very well because, again, I'm trying to summarize, and I feel like this needs to be explained a tiny bit better. Yeah, so sure, things like Black Lives Matter and whatever, people asking about their rights, okay? But think of it's the mentality. You cannot say my life matters, blah, 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 when you're not focused about all the other responsibilities. You need to have a responsible mindset. Like I'm responsible to everybody, not just about my rights. When you only focus on your rights and you don't focus on anybody else's rights at the same time, then it creates a very narrow, selfish mindset, which doesn't solve the problem. Because if you're only thinking about rights 1/100th of the time, and the rest of the time you're irresponsible, you're not suddenly going to become responsible towards that particular cause. You need to be generally responsible. It's a mindset of being of service to people. You cannot have that mindset 1% of the time. It doesn't work. So I think that explains a bit more. But anyway, all right. So we are also affected in many ways by the world we live in. For example, if we have friends that behave badly, then we often copy their bad behavior just because we are surrounded by them on a regular basis. This is why we should keep trying to make our surroundings better, be it a better society or the environment. So hopefully that makes sense. What's the connection? We need to be happy. We need to work on our environment because our environment affects us. So keep working on your environment. So that's why it affects your happiness. Okay, section 2, insider. Okay, Islam gives gives guidance on social, economic, political, cultural, and other life issues. Although climate change and environmental issues are more recent problems, Islam has been tackling them long before they became such a grave threat to our planet. Islam has been giving us guidance on such matters for more than 1400 years. There's always some sort of spelling mistake or something in my text summary. God has inside knowledge of the workings of the world and gives us amazing insight as to how we can save our environment. Prophet Muhammad forbade the skin. So, one example, for Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the person who founded Islam, you can say, the Prophet of Islam, he didn't really found Islam, God founded Islam. But Prophet Muhammad was his messenger. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, forbade the skins of predators being used as floor coverings or as mattresses. So that might sound really simple. So what? Okay, but let me continue. As predators are also not allowed to be eaten in Islam, I should say. Let's write that in Islam, because otherwise I'll forget to add that to the text summary, which I'll anyway. As predators are also not allowed to be eaten in Islam, it is basically forbidden to kill predators unless they attack you. It is strange that Islam has given such special protection to predators, especially when it was fashionable in Arabia at the time of Prophet Muhammad to wear skins of predators. Islam is a very eco-aware religion. We now know through examples such as the Yellowstone Wolf Project that predators are pivotal to the balance of an ecosystem. Predators are very few compared to their prey. Thus, God's inside knowledge of systems protects predators and so prevents us from mistakenly damaging it. I feel like there's the word slightly wrong there, but anyway, mistakenly damaging it. Yeah. Anyway, in the example of the Yellowstone Wolf Project, when a few wolves were reintroduced to the Yellowstone Park, the whole ecosystem was reinvigorated, bringing back many species of animals and plants. A very short summary of that project. Do Google it. Yellowstone Wolf Project. Islam could be considered an extreme green religion. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, even if the resurrection were established upon one of you, i.e., it's your last day on earth, while you have in your hand a sapling, you should plant it. So Islam teaches you should plant a tree even if it's the last thing you do. There are many similar teachings in Islam regarding the protection of trees. For example, it is forbidden to damage a tree in war. The importance of trees may be popular now that we are in a climate crisis, but this was the teaching of Islam 1400 years ago. Trees are of great importance. Many people will know they are important for recycling harmful carbon and creating fresh air for us. Trees are also key for stopping desertification, turning things into desert, basically turning the world into a desert, okay, which is turning huge amounts of the world into desert. Yeah, there you go, explained by myself earlier on. Okay, so I'll say that again because I really confused that. Trees are also key for stopping desertification, which is turning huge amounts of the world into desert, and so is causing billions of pounds of damage. This calamity is also contributing to health, social, and political problems due to the displacement of large numbers of people. Prophet Muhammad, also forbade the killing of bees and some other creatures. The bee has a whole chapter in the whole chapter. Sorry, I'm always in a rush preparing the material for this, so yeah. The bee has a whole chapter in the Holy Quran named after it. The bee is the most important pollinator in the world, and so is responsible for 70% of the world's food. So I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, are people connecting the dots about what I'm talking about here in this summary? So God, knowing how important the bee is, said, don't kill the bee. Okay, otherwise you won't have food. Basically, it's incredibly important. But of course, people didn't know that back 1400 years ago. We kind of do now, slowly. We still are mistreating bees incredibly badly, so we're not really there yet, instead of understanding the environment. Section 3, of course, please feel free to ask questions at any point. Go for it, please. Number 3, section 3 of the lesson is compensating. God says in the Holy Quran, and as to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in a desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until, when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing. And he finds Allah near him. That Allah is just name of God, ancient name of God before Islam even. Okay, common to Judaism and Christianity, by the way, in the original languages they were taught in. And he finds it to be nothing, these material things that they're chasing, you chase if you do. And he finds God near him, who then fully pays him his account. And God, Allah, is swift at reckoning. Okay, so by the way, I'm outside. If you hear a dog barking, it's a favorite thing of dogs to do in the evening. They socialize and they bark at each other and tell each other, look at how we're barking. So yeah, very close to nature here. So I don't mind it, but it might be a bit annoying for you. Who knows? We're friends with a lot of the animals, so we give them food, and it's a long story. Anyway, so yeah, so I just read that from the Holy Quran. It's good to read the text summary, as I keep saying, because it's like poetry. You kind of have to reflect on it. You hear it, you kind of understand something. You read it again, you understand a bit more. But I will be explaining it here. And by the way, as I say, there's links for all the different things I'm quoting here. So God describes in this verse of the Holy Quran the sad story of all those who chase happiness through buying stuff. It is a never-ending chase, like chasing a mirage. Instead, God punishes such people when they finally get what they wanted to buy. They realize that they have wasted their time. That's the punishment. And you could go more than that. You can see, for example, celebrities. They chase stuff and they get really miserable and they go to rehab, okay? Because that's the punishment. They kind of punish themselves. It's a natural result because they haven't understood where happiness comes from, okay? But like most people in the West, and that's why I make this show, these classes. Okay, so where am I? Where am I? So God describes in this verse, the Holy Quran, the sad story. Yep. I've just read all of that. Let's go to the next paragraph. We over consume. So this is how it connects to the environment. We over consume because we are consumed or controlled by a never-ending thirst for buying things, trying to find happiness. But we can never find happiness through buying things. We eat so much more food than we need that is causing us diabetes. I'm not even sure if I said that sentence properly. We eat so much more food than we need that it is causing us diabetes. Why do we do that? Because we are so unhappy that we are trying to cover up our sadness by trying to feel good through eating and doing other things. If we had inner peace, then we wouldn't feel the need to buy so much and so have to make so much stuff that is destroying our world. So probably have to spend quite a long time working on my sentences, but it goes something like this. If we were happy, then we wouldn't have to buy so much stuff to compensate for it, like our sadness. Okay, and if we didn't have to buy so much, we wouldn't have to create so much stuff, produce so much stuff, and then we would save the environment. Basically, we are producing loads more stuff than we need to, so much stuff that's actually making us sick, like so much food, which is one of the biggest environmental issues the world faces at the moment. Okay, it's like 1/3 of the CO2 or methane or harmful gases caused by cows poo and stuff like that, right? So don't underestimate that. And so all this overconsumption is because of our sadness, and therefore it destroys the planet completely unnecessarily. Okay, so yes, if we had inner peace, we would solve that problem. And this is what this show is about: 100 different ways of getting inner peace. Okay, inner peace causes outer peace, being in harmony with our surroundings. Okay, which includes people and our environment. So when we're happy, we make other people happy. We're at, in harmony with others. Unhappy people are destructive and destroy everything around them. There's a famous quote that goes, hurt people hurt people. That means if you're hurt inside, you start hurting other people. And I'm sure you've got experience of that, right? You must know somebody like that. It's not a, I don't know, you have to be a little bit old, I suppose. Maybe if you're a kid, you don't know that, because kids don't know as many messed up people. Hey? It takes a while to get messed up, usually. Anyway, but when I say messed up, I don't mean it in a mean way. It's kind of like sad, pitiful, but not. Anyway, you know what I'm saying, right? We're all messed up in different ways, and this show is for helping all of us out. I need help as well, by the way. Always, we all need help. We've got always something to fix. Okay, so there shouldn't be some sort of arrogance about it. Arrogance makes us stupid and not learn and not develop and not grow and not have fun as well. Because when you're not growing, well, that's a pretty boring place to be. Okay, so peace. Okay, we are on part 4. In the previous section, I just pointed out that our environmental problem is an unnecessary problem. The problem exists because we are unhappy and so become destructive to everything around us. The first way to have inner peace, that's the solution, okay? The first way to have inner peace is to have the correct perspective on life. The most important part of that is to know God. When you know God, then you do not feel lost, depressed, and purposeless. That makes us happier and so less destructive. Knowing God is our innate desire, so fulfilling that makes us happier. So we feel less lost, but also we're attracted to God. We need to know God. There's a lot of kind of evidence of that, which was coming up. So fulfilling that innate desire to know God fulfills, makes us happier. We know of our desire for God if we reflect on our reaction to nature. It has been shown by psychologists that we need to be close to nature to have good mental health. Nature is just a reflection of God, as it's God's work. The promised guide of our age, His Holiness Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, it's a quote in the text summary, if you want to know about him, explains in his book, Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam, also a quote for that. It's a free book online. He says, of the natural conditions of man is his search after an exalted being towards whom he has an inherent attraction. This is manifested by an infant from the moment of its birth. As soon as it is born, it displays a spiritual characteristic, that is, it inclines towards its mother and is inspired by love of her. As as its faculties are developed and its nature begins to display itself openly, this inherent quality is displayed more and more strongly. It finds no comfort anywhere except in the lap of its mother. This child finds no comfort other than in its mother. The same attraction, so missed a little bit. The same attraction comes into play whenever a person feels love for another. It is the reflection of the attraction that is inherent in man's nature towards God, as if he is in search of something that he misses, the name of which he has forgotten, and which he seeks to find in one thing or another, which he takes up from time to time. So pretty epic quote, quite a long one. Hopefully you've understood some of it. Okay, so that was just explaining, kind of proving in some way that we do have an inherent attraction towards God. And if we fulfill that, we're going to find some inner peace. That's key to inner peace. Okay. You can also test the truth of our need for knowing God by simply thinking about God. Just think about God, right? Test this theory that we need God or we're attracted to God. Just think about God, see what happens. Okay, you will find it gives you comfort. This is what God tells us in the Holy Quran. It says, it is in the remembrance of Allah, that is God, that hearts can find comfort. Knowing God also makes us realize our responsibility to our world and our fellow human beings. God tells us in the Holy Quran that we have been given the responsibility of caretaker for earth. We are told God is watching us and we will be held accountable. This makes us behave better than if we thought we can get away with doing bad things. No, I'm out here and there's all sorts of things going past, so it distracts me a little bit. Okay. So it makes us behave when we know there's a God. Okay. It's it's actually mathematically like a certainty that God exists. Okay. So it's not like just imagining it, but kind of being aware of it helps you behave. So there's so many benefits. So God is always, basically, you'll notice in all my lessons, okay, God is central. Like without God, you are in big trouble in lots of ways, psychologically, in all sorts of ways in it. But knowing God puts you in line in so many ways. It makes your life, makes things very clear, makes you behave better, all sorts of stuff, right? That's what I'm getting at, really. So yeah, we feel more accountable if we know God is watching us. But knowing that we are, so let me actually just read it. Knowing we are all God's creation makes us realize that we are all brothers and sisters in this world, not strangers. That way, we become more together. You can see how Islam brings, fairness in there, brings people together during the Hajj, that is the pilgrimage to Mecca, as one human family. Togetherness leads to happiness, as we are social beings. So knowing God gives us peace or happiness in many ways. When we have peace, we are not destructive, but instead make the world beautiful. Number 5, technology. So it is mathematically impossible that God does not exist. If we look at the endless ways in which God keeps us alive in this world, we can see there are no accidents. God introduces himself in the first verse of the Holy Quran, and this is a translation. Arabic is a very deep language, so the words in Arabic are very few, and it can be translated different ways, but not random ways, to be clear. But let me just get on with it. All help should be asked from Allah. the one God. So this is just a translation of the first verse. All help should be asked from Allah, the one God, who is like a womb to you, where everything you need is given and you are encouraged to grow. So in Arabic, it's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So there's two qualities: one, to give you everything, and two, give you more and encourage you to do more. Basically, encourages you to grow in all sorts of very clever ways. That's verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1. Okay, this description of our relationship with God, of a baby in a womb, shows us that we do not have as much power or freedom as we imagine. God allows us to cause some destruction so that we might learn, but God also provides resources and inspires us with ideas so that we create new technologies that help us with our needs. For example, God told us 1400 years ago that we would be provided with new forms of transport that we had never heard of before. Quote, and he has created horses and mules and asses that you may ride them as a source of beauty, and he will create what you do not yet know. So God describes how he is aware of our ability to cause. No, okay, that's the end of that, really. I didn't explain that verse very well or much. Just quoted it. So basically, this verse is saying, like, God gives you all sorts of transport, but that transport is of many uses. One, just to help you in life, and there are many other benefits, right? Make your life more fun, kind of. That's kind of like, what was the word? A source of beauty or something, right? Okay. And so there'll be new things that you don't know of yet. And even now, there'll be new things later on. Okay. So at that time in Arabia, when this first was revealed, you just had like camels and horses or whatever. And now we've got cars. People didn't know about cars 1400 years ago, but the Quran said there'll be all sorts of stuff coming up, and there'll still be all sorts of stuff coming up. Okay, so this is another verse. God describes how he was aware of our ability to cause destruction, but also of our ability was also of our ability to become beautiful and make the world better. Quote, and when thy Lord said to the angels, I am about to place a caretaker who will rule over the earth, they said, the angel said, wilt, I've half translated it from ancient English to modern English, so will, not wilt, wilt was the original, will you put on earth such a creature that will cause disorder in it and shed blood? And God taught, missed a little bit. God taught Adam all the ways of God, that is good behavior. God said, then, God said, oh, Adam, show the angels your good potential. And when God demonstrated that good behavior to the angels, when God demonstrated, maybe I've mistranslated it, when Adam demonstrated that good behavior to the angels, God said, did I not say to you, I know the secrets of the heavens and the earth? Explanation, our free will was inevitably going to be misused when controlled by selfish desires. But when guided by a higher cause, we can overcome our short-term selfishness and come together to make this world beautiful. I think this is a self-evident truth that, we are we control our short-term selfishness, then we're going to think long-term and do better things, right? Because it's short-term to destroy the planet. It is short-term, right? Not a good idea. Anyway, economics, chapter or part 6 of this lesson. Feel free to interrupt and disagree or whatever. Part 6, economics. Interest, which is forbidden in Islam, Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 276, encourages overproduction. So interest is a system, economic system, or way of doing things, which encourages overproduction, more production than we need to. Okay, so we unnecessarily mine the world and damage the environment. Please check out last week's lesson called Money, How to Buy Happiness for Yourself and Others on homepage of bigquestionsanswer.com. Go to bigquestionsanswer.com and you'll see chapter 3, I believe. Yes. For more information about how the dangers of interest-based loans. Okay, basically interest. Okay. God says in the Holy Quran, and in their wealth was a share for one who asked for help and for one who could not. Okay, so talking about people who made a lot of money, whatever, and it's saying, God here reminds us that we are all part of a human family, and in the wealth of the world, and the wealth of the world is for all of us, not a few to greedily take. If the rich make some money, in their wealth, quote, in their wealth is a share for one who asked and one who could not. The wealth a person makes comes from the resources of our shared world, and so they must share that wealth with their brothers and sisters in our human family. So I haven't really explained that. I just quoted it, but I haven't fully explained it. So let me explain it a bit more. If people are being really greedy, okay, like there's like Bill Gates and whatever currently buying most of the land in America, okay, then there's less for everybody else. But it's kind of really unnecessary for one person to have millions of hectares or whatever of land. Okay, what are you going to do with it? Okay, but if it was used in a shared way, then you destroy the world, I suppose, isn't it? Right? Like you're not over. It's just crazy. Okay, you're not just share it out, share this world out, and then we won't have to destroy it. I don't know if it's so obvious that I don't need to explain it, I suppose. But it's not obvious to lots of people. Yeah. So if people think, oh, it's capitalism, I've deserved the right to have millions of hectares of land because I use capitalism and capitalism justifies everything. Sorry, there's a crazy, I shouldn't, yeah, never mind. Okay. Let's just get on with it, right? Anyway, if you disagree with me, of course I'm saying controversial stuff. I'm saying more controversial stuff in a bit, right? Housewives going to be the most controversial section, I suppose. Okay, so if you disagree with me, comment. Disagree, so at least I can explain to you how I think I'm right. Yeah, so let's get on with it. Housewives, last section. Islam teaches. Sorry, my sentences are terrible in this text summary. Islam teaches that men and women, so not the, but that men and women should specialize. Something dropped, maybe as a grape. I'm under a massive grapevine stuff. Anyway, Islam teaches that men and women should specialize, which has many benefits. So I should explain this point since there's so many errors in my writing. It's really hard doing this stuff. Okay, it just takes a lot of time. Yeah, it'd be great if you want to join me, help me out. Please do. Yeah, please do. Takes different personality types. I'm not the very careful type, more like the entrepreneur, risk-taking type. So I do stuff which other people won't do, but that quality is good, but it's bad as well because people work together when all the different personality types work together. So the careful type, I need a careful person to check my work before I start speaking on a live show. Okay, so anyway, So, as I was saying, Islam teaches that men and women should specialize, which has many benefits. Quote, men are guardians over women because Allah, that is God, has made some of them excel others. Okay, men over women. And because men spend of their wealth, so virtuous women are those who are obedient. So, sounds super sexist. In fact, Islam is very sexist, and we need lots of sexism, but positive sexism. Like we already have, sexism in like the Olympics. So try to understand this context, right? We don't have 100 meters race with men and women, men racing women. It just doesn't happen. Okay, we realize in the Olympics, kind of, okay, that men are different to women. It's not complicated. It seems like the nowadays we've gone backwards so much. Like we can't even understand that men and women are different. There's like massive debate about it, and because of that, I said kind of we've understood that in the Olympics. That men are different to women because in the women's part side of the Olympics, it's getting really messed up. There's all these men who are saying, "Yeah, we're women," and they're winning all the events. That's great, isn't it? Okay, yeah, called transsexual people. Yeah, there we go. All right, so basically, yes, Islam is saying that men should be guardians over women. That doesn't mean rulers over women. That's just messed up thinking, or not just messed up thinking. It is messed up thinking, but it's messed up thinking because you might have heard so many negative things, and you put them all together, and you put them in the wrong way together. Taking care of each other is not a bad thing. So Islam is just saying men are just good at leading. Okay, it's like in the animal kingdom in many species. Okay, it's not a big deal. You don't look at lions and go, "You bad male lions being the leader. You should be all equal." No, it doesn't work. Okay, we're all different. Okay, different roles. Just being a leader doesn't mean better or more privileged or something. In fact, it means less privileged because you're basically a servant. When you're leading, you're actually being of service. It's not just That's not just sitting there is not being a leader. Okay. For example, men are expected to be more patient. Why? They're so sexist, isn't it? Okay. That's part of being a leader. So, yeah, there's so many things in there, but I'll quickly read on to keep this within an hour. Lack of cooking. So, what's it got to do with the environment? A lot. Okay, so lack of cooking at home causes food to be industrialized, which causes food to be transported around the world rather than come locally. This causes massive environmental issues. See the link. There's a link in the text summary. TED Talk, What's Wrong with What We Eat. For more detail about how being a housewife saves the environment. Okay, there's a massive knock-on effect, okay, of not having housewives. Completely underestimated because, we're shockingly short-sighted. That's why we're not looking at the data information. Okay, women going to work increases the supply of labor. There's a bit of an explanation and stuff like that. So I've already explained one thing. In one paragraph, I explained a ton of things. Definitely worth watching the video. I talked about it in the previous episode, I think, in the previous class as well. So that's why I haven't talked about it in detail, that thing about housewives needing to cook at home. But another point on the same sort of idea, women going to work increases the supply of labor, and so by basic economic theory encourages low value labor to be created instead of using technology to do things efficiently. So you have double the amount of labor. So if it was men just to begin with, you double it with having women as well, you half the value of labor, supply and demand. Okay, And if you halve the value of labor, you end up doing stupid things with that labor, is what I'm saying, instead of using technology and working efficiently. So the same work can be done, okay, and more interesting work and better value work can be done. Women are both willing to do work for less money as well as take abuse because of their natural agreeableness. So agreeableness is actually a psychological term, okay, and women, it's not a made up thing or my opinion, okay, statistically, women are more agreeable, okay. So, and guess what agreeable means? Pretty easy to understand, I think. Okay, so because of their agreement, thus abuse and unnecessarily bad working environments are created. So if you're agreeable, like you're getting treated really badly, abused, effectively, and then you're like, oh yes, okay, I'll take more abuse, slap me on the face and give me a few more beatings, sort of thing, you know. So there's I've been in loads of jobs, really rubbish environments all over the world, right? Okay. Yeah. So thus abuse and unnecessarily bad working environments are created. If technology was used, it can reduce energy consumption of the world. This seems to be another point. For example, so it's kind of the same point, but whatever. So firstly, agreeableness, kind of good in some ways, but over agreeableness means that you create an environment where abuse is okay. So I'll very briefly explain. So if you're really agreeable and it takes agreeableness to stay in a job, then you get the job for being agreeable while taking abuse. Okay. So that's how that environment is created, the abusive environment. Okay. Anyway, so on the other part of the argument is that if technology was used, it can reduce energy consumption of the world. For example, we are for the first time meeting our climate goals because of the pandemic. The pandemic is forcing us to work over the internet rather than meet in person. This is mostly working brilliantly. We should have done this a long time ago. I cannot say that for sure that if women were not in the workplace, we might have moved forward with this technology earlier. But I can say that women are more technology phobic and more willing to stay with the status quo. I do think with a mostly male workforce, the working environment would have been more adaptive as men are more aggressively change their jobs according to what they want, and they are more risky, willing to try new technologies. So it's kind of 2 points. Maybe I need to separate into 2 different paragraphs. Okay, we're talking about better working environments generally, not taking, abuse, and also about the use of technology, right? So yeah, you might say, "Oh, you're being very sexist. Women are great, equally good at technology." No, they're not. Okay, it's not. Can argue that very simply. Okay, just look at real life to begin with. Sometimes we don't keep it simple. So I'm trying to finish off. So it is better for men to specialize in industrious work. It's a term I've kind of to summarize kind of the work, like basically work outside the home, industrious work rather than family oriented work, which women do better. By specializing, we produce far more output for less energy used and so save the environment. If, for example, I try to be an okay brain surgeon as well as spend half my time taking care of the children, I would be a very bad brain surgeon. In short, men and women should specialize according to their natural tendencies, which can be seen from how they are built. I don't have things to give milk to a baby, for example. We should just think, like, don't overcomplicate. There is natural physical evidence, even mental evidence, how we think and everything, that demonstrates what we are designed for. It's not that complicated. Okay, so we should specialize. So men and women should specialize according to their natural tendencies, which can be seen from how they are built mentally and physically to do either technology-based work or nurturing work. It doesn't mean people go to extremes. Doesn't mean women are not allowed to use technology. That's silly, right? And this doesn't mean men shouldn't take care of children at all. It's just that men shouldn't try to feed with babies, for example. Anyway, right? This is for the sensible few. Okay, the people who go to extreme and just want to argue about everything, they'll just follow eventually, right? Maybe not in their lifetime, but generally that group of people. Okay. Just trying to finish off. So this does not mean women should never go to work, just very rarely. Okay, and some people might go object. They say, why are you being so extreme or so sort of difficult? Because actually this really harms people's lives. Okay, this harming the environment. I'm talking about the environment from the environmental angle at the moment. We're massively destroying it, and I'm talking about real solutions, but also socially it's really messing up relationships, which is I'll talk about in maybe another episode, right? So this is no messing around topic, and pretending men and women are the same is absolutely deadly, ruining lives. So this is not some academic thing where, oh, I'll be really nice about it. Okay, it's not being nice. This is being nice, by the way. This is the definition of being nice. If a doctor doesn't tell you what's wrong with you, okay, it's not polite. It's just being a bad doctor. Okay, so finally, women who feel bored at home. So this is like, oh no, I'm really bored taking care of the children, sort of thing. So I do want to give some sort of answer to that very briefly. Women who feel bored at home should be volunteering in not overly committing positions that put their families at risk of falling apart. I'll read that again, I suppose, because that sentence was read really badly. Women who feel bored at home should be volunteering in not overly committing positions that put their families at risk of falling apart. Definitely could improve that sentence. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you're a woman and you're really bored, because taking care of children is a bit like mind-numbing, right? Then go for a volunteer position, because volunteer positions are kind of a bit more fun anyway, a bit more fluid, but they're less committing. And in this very materialistic world, we can sometimes get sucked in by the short-term bits of money. And it's a massive problem, by the way, not just mentioning it. Okay, so what happens is loads of women get attracted by, oh, if I could only make a tiny bit more money, yeah, it'd be great, and then they get attracted to it, but they don't know what their bargain is. What their bargain is, right? It takes effort for a man to do his job really well. Okay, there's loads of problems, but I'm not talking about the economic one, right? Takes effort for a man to do their job really well. So what happens when a woman decides they want to make a few extra pounds, okay, is that really what happens is the man has to either take a step back and he can't really focus on honing his skills and doing his work efficiently, okay, and doing his work brilliantly so that he 10 times his value by focusing. Like if you a bit of focus, you get that much, but if you really focus, you exponentially grow your value. Okay, and everybody should do that. Everybody should specialize. I tried to demonstrate that idea earlier on with the brain surgeon idea. Don't be a half-hearted brain surgeon. We need brain surgeons to do their jobs properly. Okay, you specialize. You only do that by specializing. And so, in short, men and women should specialize. It will save the environment. It will save 101 other things, which are to come in future episodes. Thank you for watching. Catch you next week. Have a great week. Peace be upon you.